Today I'm going to show you how to build this Dark Gothic Church in ARK Survival Ascended using mostly the new Lost Colony structures, but to get these stained glass windows I've used the Dwarven Builders Custom Cosmetic that is free to use, so it's definitely a good option if, like me, you really wanted to add some stained glass to these Dark Gothic builds. Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another step-by-step tutorial here on Lost Colony today. Yeah, as I said, it is a pretty nice base. It houses everything that you might need, like your bigger crafting stations like the industrial forge and even the tech replicator, some room on the inside for some breeding of your smaller to medium-sized creatures, and of course plenty of space for storage and crafting, some nice bedrooms and some cool towers for epic views of your surroundings. As always, if you enjoy seeing these types of build tutorials and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate all the support, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. So of course we'll start with the foundations. We'll actually start with the front entrance of the building. We want to have 4 foundations in a row and then 1 on each of the corners. Then we can actually bring it here over to the side, and we can bring this out by 1 and then again make this too long. And then here we can bring it out again and make sure that this side is also too long. So yeah, 2 over here, 2 over there. We can then also make this too wide here on the outside, and then over here we're going to bring it back in again. So it's going to go in by 1 and then have another 2 foundations here on the outside. Then here we're going to bring it forward again, and we're going to go across by 4 in total. So now we have 4 foundations over here. Then we can push it back again and we'll have 3 foundations right there. Then we can extend this to be 2 here on the outside, and we actually bring these out like so. So there's 2 over here on the outside, 2 over there, and this is actually going to be the entrance at the back. So first of all we can add 3 more foundations and then extend it by 1 here on the outside. So we basically mirror the entrance that we made on the opposite side, and now we can kind of repeat the same pattern. So again, these all have 2 on the outside here. We have 3 foundations on this outside. We can bring it out by 1 and then have 4 foundations next to each other. We'll have 2 foundations over here, bring it back out to the outside, have 2 foundations over there. Then we can bring it in by a bit, and then we'll have 2 foundations going on and bring it back and connect it up to the start. So yeah, basically it should be exactly the same on both sides of the building, and that's the foundation that we're going to need. Now once we've placed all these down, of course we can actually start to fill in the entire foundation so that we'll have our support everywhere. So yeah, you want to just kind of go through it and start filling it all in, all the way through the entire build, so that we don't have to worry about any of the foundation support later on, but also so that you know for certain that whatever spot you picked to build on actually will fit this building. There we go. So that's the entire foundation that we're going to need. We're going to bring out some stairs as well, add them here in the front. That's going to be one of the entrances. Then here over on the side, this is going to be another entrance. That of course means that on the opposite side also we'll have some stairs. And here at the very back, of course, we'll add in some more stairs. Then the stairs on the side, if the landscape allows you, most cases it probably won't, you can have a sloped wall of course next to it, but again, most of the times the landscape won't allow for that. Then we can actually start by placing down some gates. We want to of course have one here at the very front. We'll have one here at these stairs too, but we'll also have one right next to it. Then all the way here at the back, of course, we'll also have a gateway, and then the same thing all the way over here on this side and right next to that one. And then first up, we'll work here on the front of the build and the main entrance. We want to bring up our pillars by 3 here on these corners, both of them. And of course, we can connect them all the way back down into the ground. We can do that for all of these. And then we can actually also bring out all walls. We can have a wall going up over here, wall going up there, and over here on the front. just so that we get the shape in a little bit. And then we actually want to take out some of our roofs, and we'll have them right over the entrance. And at the very end here, we want to have some slope walls. I would actually have them this way around, because then once we skin them, we get a little bit of the red accents. And then, of course, we can kind of just change all of these skins into the Lost Colony skins, because we want to go for that very dark tech look. Although you could definitely also play around, of course, with different skins and, you know, trying different combinations. What you probably want to do is at least change these variants to variant A so that they're the same on both sides. I usually use the variant cycle tool for this, so I don't have to interact with the menus, and I can kind of just click once. But that will just make sure that the inside isn't going to be as busy, because there's not the windows everywhere. Then, of course, we still have these sides to take care of as well. So we want to take out our quarter walls all the way along the bottom and bring it up along the side, and then go over the top and then back down. So basically creating a little shape for a window, and we will do the exact same here over on the opposite side. Bring this all the way up and back down next to this pillar. Then we want to take out the walls. We want to have a short doorway at the top and a tall doorway or normal doorway right below that. Then we can actually add in some doors into these windows, because we're going to get some stained glass windows this way. And for this, we're going to use the Dwarven Builders Custom Cosmetics. It's a free cosmetic, and it will give us the option, once we change the variants, to get some of these stained glass windows, which will fit perfectly with the Lost Colony skins. And it just allows us to get some actual nice stained glass without having to go for a paid mod. Of course, there's other options to get stained glass. You could even just paint greenhouse glass in a red color in the glass regions, or you could go for something like Castlecraft. But I just wanted a free alternative that gives you really nice looking stained glass that fits in perfectly with the Lost Colony skins. So now that we have those two windows at the side, we want to focus once again here on the front. We can take out some slope walls, follow this pattern along the top, and of course skin these so that they are all the Lost Colony skins. And then we want to add the roofs over here. So we have 4 of the roofs over that side, and then of course the same for over on the other side. We want to take out our quarters and add them along the edge here so that we have a little bit of an overhang going on the sides. And then actually, as a final detail here in the front, we want to add some half pillars. We of course can change those to the Lost Colony skins, as well as all of these roofs to get a very nice roof going. And then we just want to finally add in some railings along the top here. We can take out the steampunk skin to change them into these nice railings, which will really help. And then we almost have the entrance complete. Of course, the last thing we need is adding in the actual gateway so that we have a door that we can open and close. And that is going to be the entrance. Then we'll still continue a little bit more here on the front. We want to take out our pillars once again, and this time we want to raise up these pillars to be 5 high in total. So we'll do the same on the opposite corner, and of course make sure to connect them all the way down into the ground. We want to take out all walls here, and we can actually bring up this wall all the way to the top of the pillar. The same thing over here on the other side, so 5 high in total. And then we can actually add some slope walls here along the sides of the roof here, so we kind of want to go with the flow of the existing building. Then we can actually also add some slope walls that go outwards like this, so kind of creating a nice spike. And we can have some full walls in between these sections. Now we should be able to bring up some slope walls to form the rest of the roof. Before we do the final bit, we actually want to first get some of these sloped walls right into shape here, then remove this one for now, change it around to be like this, and then we can go around that. So basically, we now have a perfect little shape that we can change into a window with those Dwarven Custom Cosmetics. If we change the variants, you'll see we get some nice stained glass again. And then once again, we can skin these walls to be the Lost Colony skin. We can change all of these all the way around to get the right look. And we want to do that, of course, for this entire wall that we've just created. Actually, as a little detail, it could be nice to flip these around at the top again to get a little bit of that red flowing through on the outside as well. And then as you can see, it is quite busy on the inside. So personally, I prefer to change the variant at least once to remove those window looking arches and just have the same texture on the inside as on the outside. But of course, totally up to you if you want to play around with the different variants or even different skins. Here at the side, we want to bring out a beam. And then after the first 3 pillars, we want to have 2 beams going across. So we'll do the same thing here on the other side. And of course, those beams are going to be the Lost Colony skins. Then we can take out our quarter walls. And we basically want to once again make a little shape for a window. So we'll go along the entire outside to create that nice window shape. And we'll do the exact same thing, of course, on the opposite side too. So we can just go around creating the window frame that we've did before. And then we want to take out our stone doorways, short stone doorways first, normal stone doorway secondly. And then we can add, of course, the doors into that. Skin the doors again. Make sure to change the variants so that they are the stained glass. And then we can just change the skins on all of these to the Lost Colony structures. There we go. And we can do the same thing over here on the other side. Just like that. And then to add a few extra details, we actually want to have some beams at the bottom of the windows. If it lets you, I think sometimes it doesn't let you on official. I've seen some comments about that, but it's just a minor detail. And then we also probably want to have some pillars along the sides of those windows. We're not going to see too much, but it's just a little bit extra to break up the walls. And of course, we can in fact skin those. We will have a few of those extra spikes poking through now. And of course here the same thing goes. We can change all of these skins. And then here on these windows, not on the front because we already have some details there. We actually want to take out some of the quarter roofs. And we can have a little roof above the window just as an added little detail. So yeah, we want to get those in the right place. And then of course we want to add some extra details. So we'll have a little half beam on the top so that we can place a little half railing on the very top as well. And of course the railing we want to change to the steampunk skin, and the rest of this we can change to the Lost Colony skins to match the rest of the looks. And then the top layers of this wall, we just want to make a normal wall again, so we can just fully skin those to be Lost Colony just like that. And at the very least, we can of course skin these to be the same skin on both sides, but you could also play around with the idea of maybe having the fake windows there just to give you a little bit more interest. That's kind of up to you, of course, what you prefer, but yeah, it does add a little bit extra. And of course, we can skin the rest of these foundations now. We're kind of doing part by part, but of course the entire foundation needs to be skinned by the end. And then just to get things started, we can start on the roof over here. So we just want to bring up 3 wide roof all the way to the top, and of course that means we can bring those down on the other side too, just like so. And we can have of course some quarter roofs along the bottom edges. There we go. Same over here. Just to have a little bit of an overhang going on. We can change all of these to the Lost Colony skins to get the right look, of course. There we go. And then finally, at the very top, we of course want to add in a railing on top and change those to the steampunk skin. Then it's time to start working on the next part of the build. We'll take out some pillars. We'll start right over here actually and bring up a pillar to be 5 high. So the same height as that other wall. And we want to place another pillar right over here on the side of this gate that we already placed down, and have that also be 5 high in total. We can actually skin these pillars and the gate, of course, with the Lost Colony skins to get the right look already. And then we can start filling in the sides. Now this wall over here, we can just fill in all the way to the top. This wall here at the front, however, we can only make 3 high in total. So slight different there. And then, of course, we can change the skins on all of that, actually. So the walls all the way up too. And we can, of course, skin a few of these foundations to make this all look nice. And what I would definitely do here is, of course, change the variance on the walls to make sure they look the same on both sides. There we go. That should all be the same now. And then, of course, we can also fill in this wall on the opposite side here. We also will use the Lost Colony skin, and we want to change these variants as well so that they're the same on both sides again. Then actually this gate over here is of course going to be an actual gate. So we want to have the gate in there. For now, we're just going to open it so that we can still get in and out easily whilst building up the rest of the walls. But this one over here, we can actually block off by building up a wall and skinning it with the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic. And of course, changing the variants until we get the stained glass window. So that is going to be a first very big window here to let in plenty of light to the inside of your build. Then we can of course start doing the same here on this side. So we build up these walls 3 high on the very end. We of course want to raise up this pillar to be 5 high. Also have that pillar going up over here to be 5 high. Skin these, of course, all to the Lost Colony skins to make sure that this all looks the part. And we can do that, of course, for these walls on the side too. The stairs and the walls over here. This entire pillar. And we can, of course, also raise up this wall to be 5 high. Skin that all to the Lost Colony one. Then, of course, change the variants so that they're the same on both sides. We can do that here too. And of course, then we can fill in this to be a window with the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic. Change up those windows. There we go. And of course, add in the actual gate here so that we have another entrance done over there. So now that we have the entrances kind of ready to go, we actually want to start adding some roofs up. We want to first of all add a roof on top of here and also make sure that we kind of extend it here to the outside. And along the side, we want to have some quarter roofs sticking out over the edges, of course. We can then also fill in the inside here and change those to the Lost Colony skins as well as the roofs themselves so that they get the right look. And of course, finally for this section, we want to make sure that we have some railings and change those to the steampunk skin. And of course, we're going to do the same thing here over on this side. So first of all, we can bring out the quarters since we already have those ready now. Then we can bring out our roofs over here, 2 over on this side, 2 over on the other side, and also fill in our slope walls, skin them with the Lost Colony skins, of course. Get this roof looking nice, and finally add that railing at the very top and change those to the steampunk skin. Then once we've done that, we can actually start filling in the rest of these walls. Of course, we want to start out by adding some of these slope walls. And we actually want to bring up another slope wall going this way. Then temporarily, we want to place one like this. We can start a shape, then remove this one and make that shape complete. We can add in this one over here. We can add one right next to that. We can have two normal walls right there at the bottom. Then again, we want to have some temporary ones so that we can create a shape here too. Fill in the rest of the sides. And then change these to the Lost Colony skins first of all. And then of course change these so that they're the same on both sides. And then finally we can change this to be a nice stained glass window with the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic. Of course changing the variants so that we get some really nice stained glass windows. And then, of course, we want to repeat that same process here on the opposite side. So first of all, we'll have a slope wall like this. We'll have another one here. Extend that by some normal walls. Have a temporary wall so that we can start this. Remove this one. Complete that shape. Have a temporary one here so that we can start this shape over here. Remove the temporary one and fill in the last slope walls. Again, change these all to the Lost Colony skins, change these variants to be the same on both sides, and of course add in our stained glass window by changing these variants of the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic. And there we go, we got our windows in place. Now we can start adding our roofs. We want to have two over here, we can have two over there, two over here, and oops, not there, and another two right over here at this edge. Of course, again, we'll repeat the exact same process on the other side. Two roofs here, two roofs there. Repeating that pattern just like this. Then here at the very edge on this side, we can actually add in some quarters. Obviously, we can't do that corner because we don't have quarter corners, but it still looks all right, just like that. So we'll do the exact same thing here on the opposite side. And of course, now we can also skin the roofs to be the Lost Colony ones. There we go. Same on this side. All the way through. And then of course, finally, we also want to add in our railings on top of these and change them to the steampunk skins. And we can do the exact same thing over at this side. There we go. Which of course means we can take out our roof corners. We can have a corner there. We can have a corner here and another corner over there on that side so that it connects back up to the main roof. We'll do the same thing over here on the opposite side, of course, of the building. Adding in all of these corners and making sure that we can change those to the Lost Colony skins too. So they all blend in together, of course. There we go, and that means that we can expand these railings that we changed to the steampunk ones just until they meet up with the rest of the roof. And now that we have this part of the roof complete, we can of course do the final layers here by just connecting these up to the part that we already had built. Let's not misplace any of those and just connect the roof up until the part that we have completed so far. Add the railings all the way through, of course. Change those to the steampunk ones. And then we can change these to the Lost Colony skins to get that very nice roof going. Okay, then here on this side, we actually want to have a wall that is too wide. And we can bring these all the way up until where we have the roofs. Same thing, of course, on the other side, all the way up to the top. And of course, change them to the Lost Colony skins. And then in fact, I would say we also want to change these variants so that they are the same on both sides. And we can do that for all of these, of course, just like so. And then before we do anything else and cover the entire build, let's do a little bit of the interiors as well so that we have a little bit of the structures ready to go. We want to add two stairs right over here. So that is one from that corner where we just added the walls. We'll do the exact same thing here on the opposite side. take out a ceiling to add at the very end of this. Again, we'll repeat that on the other side, and then we'll have 2 more staircases to go up to the next layer, again just like this. Then we'll add some more ceiling to this, and we can actually bring out these ceilings all the way here so that they're just behind that wall that we have. We can bring this one all the way across and then connect these up with some proper walkways. So this is going to be 2 wide over here, and then here at the very end, so basically the part of the building that we have already completed, we can of course start filling this all the way in. I wouldn't actually go all the way up there because you can't really use that space anyway. So we can fill in these sides, so we can use those windows we've just created, of course. And then here at this very end, I would probably add in some nice slope walls to fill in that rest of the shape. Or what you could do if you want to save on structures is remove those slope walls and just continue the walls straight ahead like we have on those corners. But yeah, once we have this in place, of course, we can also skin all of this to be the Lost Colony skin. Or maybe you want to add some wood and you want to use the Frontier skin or something else. Of course, you can totally do that. But for now, we're staying in the vibes of this map and using mostly the Lost Colony cosmetic. We want to also change the skins here on these stairs so that they fit the vibe. Same over here on the opposite side, and of course that means you can start also skinning most of these foundations. Well, technically you could just do all of the foundations in one go if you wanted to, but at least until the very corner that we have now built up, I would certainly do so. There we go. In fact, let's just skin all of these ones at the first layer here so that we don't have to worry about any of these anymore in the future phases of building this build. So we'll just skin all we have already placed down, and this will give you access to a nice extra layer to have some crafting situated up there. So yeah, we want to have those pillars kind of on those corners. We'll have some on these as well, just to kind of add a few details, and we can have one in this corner and that corner too, just again to add a few details to it. Then we can actually have some railings on the edges of the staircase at that side. We can of course also have the railings over here, and then the same over on the opposite side. We want to make sure that we have those railings going over at that end, and then around this balcony too. Oops, not at the bottom. And then we can of course also add them in along the sides of the stairs, and of course change this all to the lovely Lost Colony skins so that they match the vibe quite well. And we can kind of finish this little crafting area that we now have created up here. Up here means plenty of room for, you know, crafting and storage. Downstairs, still enough room for like an industrial forge or a replicator, stuff like that. You know, the bigger stuff that you wouldn't be able to fit anywhere else. And of course, a little bit of your breeding. Well, the next bit is going to be quite easy too. So we want to bring up this wall to be 5 high so that they match the other wall on the opposite side. So we bring this all the way up. You can actually also do that here on the corner of this side of the build, all the way up and all the way across the bottom here, so that we kind of start shaping up this wall a little bit. So we'll do the same thing here on the opposite side, all the way up to be 5 high. Then we want to add a few more details. So first of all, we want to have a pillar going all the way up on the corner, and of course connecting it back down into the ground. And we also want to have some pillars over here on this side. So first of all, we'll bring up by 3. And of course, we can repeat that here on the opposite side. So have these pillars going all the way up at the outside and connect back down into the ground, and have 3 pillars going up the inside here. And we can also have a beam going across the bottom just to add a little bit more structure and detail to the place. We can then actually add some slope walls meeting each other like this, so that we have a little bit of a window shape that is ready. And then we want to add some more slope walls and full walls to finish the shape here, so that we can add a nice little roof. And of course, exactly the same at the opposite side, create the shape of the main building. And now that we have all this in place, that of course means that we can start skinning this so that it all fits in the right vibes by changing it all to the Lost Colony skin. There we go, so that we get the right vibes going across all of this. There we go, that's one side done. Of course, don't forget about this wall here on the side. And then of course, the same thing can be done on the opposite side of the building, all the way, and skin it all to the nice Lost Colony skins. And we want to just do that for this entire section to get this window ready. And of course, we can make this a little less busy by changing the variance of the full walls into the one that has the same option on both sides. So once again, we'll go around changing these variants all the way round, just of course to create some nice walls. And if you really wanted to, of course, you could have the variants up here that are the fake windows, just to create even more interest there. Then we can actually add some details here along the outside of this window. So we want to add some roofs. We can go all the way across that little edge to have that nice little roof detail. We can do the same here on the opposite side, bringing in those roofs. And of course, we can also have a little half beam on top of those, so that we can add a little half railing at the very top and skin the railing, of course, to the steampunk skin. And the rest of this we can again change to the Lost Colony skin, so they all match the rest of the vibes of the build. And then of course, we still have these windows that we need to fill in. So what we want to do is bring out our normal walls, build all the way up, and of course end with 2 slope walls. Change this all to the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic, and make sure that we change them to the right variants, so that we have a beautiful stained glass window. And we can do the same thing at the opposite side. So once again, we want to bring up these walls, some slope walls at the very top, at the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic everywhere. And again, change that variant so that we have a nice stained glass in there for those big windows here at the side. Then of course, we want to continue the roof. So first of all, we can add this corner right over here, so that we can follow along with the roof. We want to take out our normal roofs and have it stick out on the very end here, which of course means we can start connecting these 2 sides. We can also have another corner at this point and over there, so that we can blend the roof in nicely with each other. And we actually want another corner here at the very end over there, so that the roof is still going to continue, of course, for this last part. And then along the side here, of course, we want to continue the railings that we can change to the steampunk skin. And also here along the top of the roof, we want to add those in. But of course, we also want to start continuing the roof on this side. So again, stick out by 1 at the outside here. Do that for both sides, and we can kind of make sure they meet up. We can have another corner here and over there, so that we can have the roof complete again at those railings. We'll switch those to the steampunk skins. And of course, the roof itself, we can then change to the Lost Colony skins, so that they blend in with the roof that we already have in place so far. There we go. That looks quite nice. And of course, the same thing here on the opposite side, making sure that that all matches up with each other. There we go. And that means that we have another lovely added detail to these walls. A big window letting in more light to the base itself. Okay, now that we've done all of that, it's time to start on the two towers on this side of the build. So first of all, here on this corner, we want to add in a pillar. Then we leave a gap of 3 and we want to add another pillar. We're going to actually bring this pillar up all the way over here and make sure that finally it is one taller than the roof itself. So we'll do the same thing over here on the opposite side, bring it up all the way so that they're the same height. And of course, it also means that we can do the same thing here again. So bring up this pillar all the way until it's one higher than the roof is so far. And do the same thing over here. So all the way up so that it is one higher than the existing building. And here at the very corners, we want to make sure that these pillars are fully supported all the way back down. We can then of course take out our Lost Colony skins and make sure we change these all the way up, because these are going to be the corners for our towers. So it's nice to have these as guidelines when we start building the walls one by one. Now these walls are going to be quite simple, of course, since they're mostly inside. It would be really nice to use a large wall here to save some time and resources, but unfortunately they don't have the variance, so we will just have to build up these walls the normal way. So we want to build it all the way up just like that, and we'll do the same thing here on the other side, of course. Build those all the way up until the roof line for now. Then next we want to have actually a wall going on the top layer here, and we can add one more layer at the bottom. So there's 2 layers that are left open. There we want to add in some quarter walls along the sides, the same over here, and we can do both sides of the tower at the same time. There we go. Add those all in. Then of course we want to add a temporary one and go around like this before we add in the slope walls in the corners. Remove this one and finish the shape so that we have a nice window there. So again, we want to have a temporary one here, go around, remove that one, and fill in the remaining slope walls in those gaps. Of course, that means that we can change these with the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic so that we can get some stained glass windows, so we can actually get some natural light flowing into this tower. And then along the sides of these, of course, we want to have some quarter roofs. So we just want to have those along the very edge, and then we want to have a half beam on top of those, and of course a half railing that we can change to the steampunk skin. The rest of this, of course, we can change to the Lost Colony skin so that we get that nice roof in place. And then finally, of course, it means we can basically skin this entire wall segment to the Lost Colony skins all the way from top to bottom, and that counts for both sides, of course. So we just want to add this skin all the way, same over here. And then of course, to make it a little bit less busy, what we can do is make sure that the variants are the same on both sides, because yeah, I think that just looks a little bit nicer than having these busy arches and windows everywhere. So for this wall, quite easy filling that all in and now changing a few of these skins. Then we want to bring out our pillars again, and on this corner, of course, we also want to bring it all the way up to the same height as we had before. Then we leave a gap of 3 and we bring up another pillar to that same height. We can do the same thing here on this corner, of course, connecting them all the way into the ground too. And then once more, we'll have one over here so that at least these pillars, the corners of the towers, are completely in place. And we of course can also change these skins. The reason I want to do these right now is because if you rotate or place the pillar in the wrong way, sometimes the skin is rotated in a weird way And you probably want to make sure that they're all facing the same direction, just because that looks a little bit nicer, of course. And then here along the sides, we can have an entrance in the middle. And if you want to, you can, of course, add in some doors so that you can actually go in and out of these towers just like that. But if you want to have some storage at the bottom, what you could also do, and what might be easier then, is maybe having some double doors instead, and even considering maybe just leaving them open so you don't have to open and close the doors all the time. Of course, that is totally up to you. These Lost Colony ones do have auto open on the doors, of course, so maybe it's not that bad, but you might get sick of it if there is some storage that you want to use and run in and out all of the time. I'm just saying. Then, of course, we can once again bring out our walls. We can start filling this up, and this wall we can actually bring all the way up to the top of the pillars, because there's no real point for having a window on this side, so it's a very easy wall, just bringing it all the way up to the very top. Just like that. And of course, that means we can also change this all to the Lost Colony skins. There we go. From top to bottom. And we want to do the same thing over here. Changing these all to that Lost Colony skin. And of course, to make it a little bit less busy, because as you can see, there's a lot going on here. We can change all of these. You could also, of course, add in a fake window. Just have a little bit of detail at some of the top layers. But for the rest of this, I would definitely just switch it all to look the same on both sides. So for now, we can totally do that everywhere. And then maybe have just that fake window right there in the middle. Then before we add in all the walls, etc., we can already add in one of the floors here, which are great little bedrooms up here. So what you want to do is have the hatch frame in the corner, and then just have the rest of the ceilings completing this floor. And it's just an easy way to get up and down with the ladder. Saves a lot of time too. So that's why I decided to go for that for this build. So we can already, of course, add in the ladders themselves. You can kind of decide which way you want it to be facing. But yeah, we can bring it all the way back down, just like this. And that is an easy way to get up and down. And the ladders look actually quite nice in this skin, so why not utilize that? And as I said, they make for great little bedrooms up here. Then the first step we'll do is this wall right at this side. We can actually fill that all the way up to here, and then of course the very top layer we can also already fill in, and the same thing goes for the other side of the entrance, of course. Then whilst we're at it, we might as well work on the little window that we'll have up here. So some quarter walls along the sides of this part, of course. Same over here, because we are again going to have those nice stained glass windows. So we want to have a temporary piece again, so we can start filling in this shape a little bit before removing it again. And then we can do the same thing over here. We want to just fill in the slope walls, replace that one, so that we can create our lovely stained glass windows here with the Dwarven Builders Cosmetic. And again, change the variance to get that window going. And of course, we can also change all of these skins to make sure that these are all looking nice. And that means we can also change the variance here at the top so they're a little less busy. And to start, we're going to just have some of the walls continue along the bottom. Then we can take out our short doorway. We want to have one right over here and another one over there. So again, one over here, one over there. Then take out the normal doorways and create some window shapes like this, so they're not all the same height. And then the rest of the wall, of course, we can just fill in with our normal walls all the way through. We can, of course, add in the doors or the windows in this case. And we want to change the windows to the Dwarven Builders skin. Same over here. And then we can change the variants to get our nice stained glass options. So we do that for all of these. And then, of course, we want to have some pillars along the sides of the windows. There we go. We can do the same thing here on the opposite side. And we also want to have some beams across the bottoms if it allows us. And then we can actually start skinning this all to the Lost Colony skins. Oops, not the window. We don't want that. Only all of the other structures. And of course, that means the entire wall can be changed, because that will look quite nice already when we do this. Of course, very carefully around those windows. There we go. And change the rest of that. Then again, of course, we can change all of these full walls to the second variant so that they're the same on both sides, just to make it a little bit cleaner and a little less busy. So we'll do that for all of these all the way around. And then we still want to add a few extra details above these windows. So first of all, we can take out our quarter roofs and add a little roof on top of these. Snap to these pillars that we just added. There we go. And then over here, we actually want to switch to the ramps. Again, we want to find a snap point with those pillars and get that little extra detail here too. So kind of playing around a little bit with the different angles and different shapes we can use. We can then use a little half beam on top of all of these so that we can actually snap a half railing that we can change to the steampunk railings on top of those. And then the rest, of course, we can switch to the Lost Colony skin, and we'll do that for all of those sections so that we get a nice detailed window frame that we have on the sides of this tower. And then finally, of course, we want to fill in the rest of the walls here for the side of the building. So we want to have a layer of walls going down the side here. Then we want to bring down walls over here all the way down like this, 2 in the middle, and then the same here over at the side. And again, the same thing, of course, applies here to this side of the building. So 3 there, 2 in the middle, and 3 over there. Then we can add in our door frames. Oops, not over there. That's definitely not what we wanted. And of course, those door frames we want to have on both sides of the building. Then we can have the normal door frames, the taller ones, to finish these window shapes. And again, we'll do that here on the opposite side too. We can take out our pillars, have them along sides of the windows, and some beams at the bottom if it will let you, and then add in the doors to create the stained glass windows that we want and like. And of course, change these variants so that we actually have the stained glass in there. So we'll do the same thing, of course, on the opposite side, making sure that we add in the doors, get the skins on there, and change them to the stained glass. There we go. And then, of course, let's not forget to add in the beam at the bottom and the pillars alongside of those. Then we can take out our quarter ramps again, find the snap points for above these side windows. Same over here. Then we'll rotate all the way around and do it all again on this side. First of all, for these little windows at the side. Then we want to take out our quarter roofs again and have a little roof here above the main part. And then we can, of course, change out or add our little half beams on top of these little windows to add a little bit more detail. We, of course, also want to add these quarter roofs over here with the little beam, and then the half railing on top, which we can change to the steampunk skin to make sure that we have all of these little details in place before, of course, we can change it all to the Lost Colony skin. And we want to do that for the entire section here. There we go. And all the way up to there. We can, of course, change these variants again so that they are the same on both sides. So it's a little less busy on the inside. Let's not forget about these roofs. And then, of course, the exact same thing is going to go over here on the opposite side. So carefully, we will change all of these as well as the little roofs that we have. There we go. And all the way to the top. And again, we want to change these variants so that they're the same on both sides. So it's a little less busy over here. And then finally, of course, we need to do the top layers here. So at the very top, we can just have some walls going across from one side to the other. We can do that on both sides. And of course, change these variants so that they're the same on both ends. And then finally, we just want to add in these windows again. So we'll have some of the quarter pieces along the sides, of course, of the building. Same thing over here at the opposite side of the building. And then we want to change these, or we want to add these shapes. So for temporarily, we'll have that snap point. We'll add some of the slope walls in. Remove that one. Complete that shape. And then, of course, do the same thing over here on the other side. Temporary one, so that we can get the snap point. Remove this one. Finish the shape. And then, of course, we can change the outsides to the Lost Colony skin. And then the inside to the Dwarven Builders, which we can switch to the stained glass window. We can do the same thing over here on this side. Make sure that we have the window in there. And then we can add the Lost Colony skin around there. And then finally, of course, we want to make sure that we add in these details around all of the little stained glass windows that we've just added. So we want to make sure that we add this little ledge around it. And there we go. We can add our little half beam at the very top. We want to, of course, switch all of this to the Lost Colony skin. There we go. All the way around for all of these different roofs. So now all of the windows should have that. And then, of course, finally, we want the half railing on top that we can change to the steampunk skin. And that should add enough details around the bases of these towers. And then it's time to start focusing on the top of the towers themselves. We'll start out with our quarter ceilings to go around the very edge here of these insides of the towers to add the next layer. There we go. So that's going to be like a tiny little balcony basically going around this entire tower. We'll go all the way round just like this. Then we want to add in some details, of course. We can add in some half pillars on top of these corners. There we go. We want to do that, of course, for all of these different sides. And then we want to add in some railings in between so that you won't fall off any of these balconies when you do get on them. They're mostly for decorative purposes, of course, but they are still functional. So if you really wanted to come up here to enjoy the views, you can. And we just want to make sure that we add these railings all the way around. Then we want to have 3 ceilings just like this. We'll keep that one over there open. Same over here. And then we can have the hatch frame in the corner. We can bring out or ladders. And once again, we can add some ladders going in to the building. Just a very convenient way, and it saves a lot of space. So we'll do the same thing over here on the opposite side again, bringing in the ladder so that we save on some space on how to get up and down. And yeah, that should bring the basics up here. So then we of course want to make sure that we change all of these skins again to the Lost Colony 1. And that will transform the looks, of course. We can also do these railings, which look very nice. And the little half pillars, of course, on the corners. And we'll do the same thing over here for this tower. Get all the skins in the right place. Change these pillars and change these railings. There we go. So that's a good start. Then over here, we want to have some quarter walls on both sides. There we go. And we want to have a little doorway in the middle of these. Now, you could add an actual door. It's going to make this very narrow, but, you know, you probably want to secure your build. So probably best of doing it. Or you could, of course, just maybe have a little trapdoor on top of the hatch frame instead to secure your build. Also, not sure how often you'll even go up here to begin with, but it will look very cool at least. So after that layer, we want to raise it up by 3 more walls. And then, of course, it's too wide. So all the way up. And, of course, we can change all of those skins to be the Lost Colony ones. I would definitely also make them the same on both sides so that they're not as busy. And then we can start adding in some of our gateways here. So we want to snap to the 2 ceilings. So we want to have one here, one over there, one over there. And then you should be able to get one over here as well. That one is definitely the trickiest one. But yeah, we want to do the same here over on the other side. Again, this is the trickiest one, but it should work. It's also the least important one if you can't get it to snap. But yeah, we should also be able to change them all, of course, to the Lost Colony skins, which will give us some really nice shapes already for this part of the building. And then we just want to start filling in these walls to be 4 high. Again, the same over on this side. But yeah, definitely these gateways are the best part of the Lost Colony skins, with these nice spikes on them and the nice curved shape to it. Really adds the right vibes. So for now, we just want to bring up all these walls on the different sides. There we go. Then we want to take out the Lost Colony skin for the top layer of all of this. There we go. And we can, of course, change these variants so that they're not as busy. There we are. And then, of course, we want to change these to the Dwarven Builders ones so that we get some lovely stained glass windows on all of the different sides of this tower. So first of all, we'll just apply the skin everywhere, going all the way around a few times. And then, of course, we will actually switch up these skins so that we get a lovely windows on all the different sides. And we'll just continue going for all of those. There we go. Same over here until we've been all the way around. So we have a pretty good start here for these towers. We once again want to take out our roof corners, and we can start adding a nice little roof on top of these. There we go. Same over here. All the way around the edges. Of course, we can then add the Lost Colony skins. Then for some additional details, we can add a normal pillar and then we can add a thin pillar on top just to give a little bit more of a spiky look to the top of these. Yeah, you can see sometimes these pillars are rotated for some reason and then they look very different. There we go. That is facing the right way because that is otherwise going to annoy me for sure. So that is the basic version of the tower. If you want to add a little bit more detail, I would definitely have some of the quarter roof still going over the edge. Unfortunately, of course, we don't have corners for this, but it will still look quite nice anyway. Just to make it a little less flat most of all. And of course, we can also change those to the Lost Colony skins to make sure that it all fits in very nicely. And we can continue this all the way round, of course. And there we go. We have the 2 towers of our church complete, and that really already adds a lot of character to it. And we only need to finish the final back entrance here. That is not too difficult to do. It's kind of similar to the other one. First of all, we can of course add the gate itself so that we can open and close the doors. We can then take out our pillars here on the back. We want to have 3 pillars high. Not that one, definitely. And then we want to do the same thing over here, adding in these pillars. We can of course already change these skins too. There we go. We can add in our walls here. We can add in our walls over there. And we can of course skin those walls right away. If you want to make it a little less busy, we can of course change those variants. We can add our roofs here above the entrance so that we have that nice curve going. We can also add in our slope walls above the gate itself. And then here to kind of give a nicer variance in the skins, you can actually flip around these slope walls so they're inside out, because then when you apply the skins, you get a little bit more of the red flowing through. That's also something you could do on the front of the building if you wanted them to match. We can have some railings underneath. I don't know if I did that on the entrance. I don't think so. So yeah, you might want to add some railings here too for a little bit of extra details when entering the build itself. So yeah, that looks quite nice, I think, with the little red details. Then of course we have the sides here where we want to go around and place all quarter walls all the way up to once again create some shapes for windows. So we have one over here and then of course one here on the opposite side. We just want to circle around it. There we go, until we can add in our doors for some shapes and then have them here and over there, and then we can add in our doors in the middle. We can of course change those doors to the Dwarven Cosmetic and change them to the stained glass, and then again as details some pillars on the side, same over here, some beam at the bottom if it lets you, and then we can change this entire wall to the Lost Colony skin. And then the same thing, of course, on the other side. There we go. And then it's time to focus on the roof. So first of all, we'll have these two going in like this to fill in the basic shape. And then, of course, we can have some of our quarters around the edge to create a little bit of an overhang here on the side, which of course we all want to skin to the Lost Colony ones all the way through. Then as little details, we want to have a little half pillar at the corners, skin those two of course, And then on the top, we definitely want to have some more of these railings that we can change to the steampunk ones. So that is the little back entrance here before we can focus on finishing the rest of the roof. So we want to bring out our roof all the way here until we have it stick out on the front. We can then also bring this section all the way out until it sticks out like this. And of course that means we have one more going down here, and then finally ending with some quarter pieces. So basically it adds an extra little overhang here on the end to just kind of give a little bit more depth to the entire building here. There we go. We can do the same, change all the skins on the top, and then of course continue the railing that we can change into the steampunk ones. Then what we want to do here is actually bring back this roof at least by one, so it goes in between the towers, so there's a little bit more depth going on there. We can apply the skins, and then finally it means that we can actually fill in this wall. So the final wall we can just kind of fill in like this, change these skins around, and then the bottom ones I would make sure they look the same on both sides, and then these could be some fake windows just to add a little bit of extra detail in there. And speaking of some extra details, if you wanted to, you could add some of these extra little pillars on the top to kind of give a little bit of extra details for these roofs. I would only do these for the main roofs, and you can kind of see how often you want these to be added. The only shame is that they don't really match up, so you probably want to add quite a few for them just to make sense. And then if you add the skins, they will definitely make the whole roof look a little bit nicer, at least make it stand out a little bit more, as you can see. So you can choose whether you want to add those on all of this different segments, or just maybe on the main roof, or not at all. Just bonus details, really, not necessary for the main structure itself. And speaking of the main structure, that is now fully completed. So we have the full church done. So a quick look at the empty one that we just built. You can see there is a ton of space inside. You have these side rooms, of course, where you have the ladder going up for some nice bedrooms. Plenty of space down here for some of your bigger crafting stations like the industrial forge or a replicator, and a little bit of breeding if you wanted to. And then of course on the second layer here you can do the rest of your crafting and storage, etc. Because there's a decent amount of space in here. Nice windows to let in the light, and makes for a really nice base in my opinion. Then we'll take a quick look at this full church design with a little bit of the interior that I did. You can also, of course, check out the full tour video that I already made for a little bit more of a detailed and slower tour. But it is the same build that I used in the tutorial, or that I made in the tutorial. The Dwarven Builders skins, of course, for the windows. And I used the Blood Rising cosmetic for some of the additional crafting stations that normally don't have skins, because they kind of match the dark vampire vibes of the map. And as you can see, we have plenty of space on the inside for some of your creatures, so you can do some breeding, or get some blood and whatever you want to do. We have an industrial forge here for some smelting. We have the tech replicator if you want to get your tech on. We have cryo fridges, the cryo hospital, some of our gathering tames in here. We have some more cryos over on that side, and you can see there is a decent amount of space here for your creatures as well as your bigger crafting stations. Then if we follow the stairs all the ways up, I've actually decided to go for the steampunk ceilings here, just to bring in a little bit more color. We have the blood forge over here, the new war bench, and the mega lab right next to it, just to show you what you can utilize these balconies for. We have the new tech quad plots that have been introduced with some of the new plans. We have a generator, a nice little kitchen area with our table, and then we have some fridges library and a bunch of vaults with the Lost Colony skins on them, and then some of our crafting stations here to the side. So again, yeah, you have plenty of space here on the inside. We have, of course, the towers for some additional storage if you need some more room. Plenty of vaults up there. And then we, of course, have some cozy bedrooms. I use the Castle Craft bed for this because I think fits the vibes quite well. A little companion bed, but you could definitely add some pet beds as well for some cozy vibes. And then, of course, this goes all the way to the top of the tower should you want to. But yeah, that is what this Dark Gothic Church has to offer. Quite a nice base with a decent amount of space inside. Hopefully you enjoyed this build tutorial. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.